Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to create an oval that will be our blob, and we're going to create it at the top of our stage, have it hit the bottom of the stage and expand, and then we're going to animate that with a shape tween. Then we're going to add another layer and add some splash effect, which will be animated with a motion tween. So we're going to do a 2-for-1 here. Alright, let's get started. Let's create our oval by selecting the oval tool. And we're going to choose a green fill and no stroke. So make sure you see this red line here. And if you don't, just click on it once like this and move your mouse until you see this box here and press it down. We're going to go to the top of our stage and draw our shape out. And then we're going to go back to our selection tool, go to frame 10, and we're going to insert a keyframe by choosing Insert Timeline Keyframe. You could also press the F6 key on the keyboard for a quick shortcut, and we'll do that from now on. So at frame 10, we're going to move our shape to the bottom of the stage like this, and we're going to go back to frame 1 and reshape this into a more liquid drop form. So let's deselect the shape, and when you see the little curve appear under your selection tool, you can now click on the edge of your shape and manipulate it. So we're going to have our drop here, and we're going to go back to frame 10 where it's already on the ground, and once again deselect it and pull it out and pull the bottom in like this so we get this nice splash effect as it hits the ground and it starts to expand. What we're also going to do is we're going to go to frame 15. We're going to press F6 on the keyboard, and we're going to reshape it again. Just because it's on the ground doesn't mean that it's not going to give us a little bit of a shake or a jiggle. So what we need to do is create a little bit of a different animation for it, so that it has a little bit more of an expansion. So it's going to hit the ground, do this kind of thing, and then it's going to settle back down again. We're going to hit F6 again. It's going to settle back down. Because don't forget, we talked about squash and stretch earlier. And on frame 25, we want to, once again, add a keyframe and then expand the shape out to its blob shape. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like just by scrubbing the timeline. We don't have a shape tween inserted yet, so it's going to look very rough. So let's go ahead and see where it is on frame 1, then 10, 15, 20, and 25. And that's why we scrub the timeline a lot. If you want to test your animations out for timing, you can always click and drag the keyframes to adjust the timing. Now we're going to go ahead and click once in the layer name, and we're going to add our shape tween. And you'll know you did it right when you see the green tints in the keyframe area here. Let's go ahead and manually scrub again. And as you see there, we have a really cool squash and stretch. So it hits the ground, it expands, it settles, and then it starts to grow into the blob. Now let's go ahead and double click on the layer name and name this blob. And now we're going to lock this layer, because once it hits the ground and it starts to do this little bit of a disbursement here, we need to add a little bit of splash. And then when it settles in, we need to have that splash go back into the shape of the blob. So at frame 10, we're going to add a new layer, and we're going to name this Splash. We're going to add a keyframe, press F6, and let's use our oval tool once again to draw some little splashes like this. And we're going to move that into position in a second. And let's also randomize this a little tiny bit. Let's go ahead and add some, random kind of shapes to it by just reshaping some of these guys a little bit. Let's also marquee select them by using our selection tool and grabbing them all. And we're going to press F8 on the keyboard to create a new symbol. We'll name that Splash and choose Graphic as our behavior type. And what we're going to do now is we're going to move this splash down here into the shape of the blob. And we're going to use the free transform tool to give it a little bit of a squash because we don't want it to show up just yet. I'm going to put it right about there. Now at frame let's see what frame this is, 14. Don't forget, you can always see what frame you're on right here. We're going to add another keyframe, F6. And we're going to expand this out a little bit and also move it so that it's up in the air, like so. So it's going to be here, then there. And then the splash is going to settle back down into the shape. So at frame 19, let's go ahead and add another keyframe. And move this back down into the body of the blob. And also squash it a little bit as well. And if you can't grab your shape, don't forget you can always use your keyboard and use the arrow key to move your shape. You can hold the shift key down and the arrow key to move in faster increments. Alright, so let's go ahead and click on the splash layer and insert a motion tween this time. Because we have a symbol, we need to add a motion tween. And let's go ahead and manually scrub our animation. Now that is very, very cool. Alright, so I want to make sure this is all deselected. And let's scrub from frame 1 again. And we can also press the return key on the keyboard to preview animation. And before we finish, let's go ahead and change the background of the stage by clicking on the stage area, clicking our background color chip, and giving it a nice dark blue so we can see the animation a little bit more clearly.